Okay, so this video is going to be to show the installations team how to program and what to do with a QME site. So I created a checklist, which I'm going to follow, which you can follow too. Pretty much start to finish with QME. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just program the menu as a normal site in a regular QM startup database. Once you've done that, you're going to send Chris Dion the QM database, and he will convert it into QME. There's nothing we can do on our end to convert it. It has to be done by PosiTouch. They don't want to share that with anyone. So this is what a database that we've just programmed would look like after it's been converted. You see regular menu screens. Then you have a new column here that says stores. So once they've converted it, you're going to want to, you can start programming it on your machine, but if the customer has, they're going to need a designated machine where the master database is going to live somewhere in a corporate office or somewhere. I know one customer we have has it on a laptop. Others have a machine that we've sold that's in their corporate office, or I've even seen virtual machines where their office accesses it through a remote connection. So those are all there, but they're going to eventually need one. But you could program it on your machine if needed. If you do download it to a corporate PC, you're going to want to install the Posi Live Update Agent. That's how they'll be able to send out exports to the stores. And you're going to want to send that ID for the master database, letting them know it's the master database, to PosiCloudSupport at PosiTouch.com. Okay. So now we're ready to start up this new QME customer. The first thing they're going to want to do is create their stores. So under Tools, you have Edit Stores. So here you can see I have no stores. I'm going to create a new store. So if they have IDs, it's just going to automatically assign store ID number 1. For a group like Anthony's who has their own number system, I just call it, the store number and the name. Whatever is going to make more sense for them, they can call it whatever they want, usually by location. And if they are across multiple states, if they want to include that this is in Florida, you can do that as well, whatever they want to call it. Now, Dairy Queen uses QME, but they don't program each store. They just program a concept. So instead of stores, they have Grill and Chill, Treat Center, or whatever else, other concepts they have, Texas. So those are listed here under stores. Most of our other customers that don't have that many stores, you can program by store. Now, if you're going to have different features that are controlled by store, you're going to want to program them each separately. If they're not, if they're more general like Dairy Queen and they can just be assigned a concept, that's what you could do here instead. So I'm going to create the store, and then you're going to want to find out from the customers what's different about each store. Do they have different pricing? Are they across different regions and maybe have different tax flags? Do you have printers versus VDUs and maybe different prep categories that are set up? And you also have the option for different sizing. So all these store override groups here are the only things that you can really customize in the master database. That's separate from the main. Uh, so pretty much everyone's going to have the same quick menu, all the same items, all the same screens. Um, but you can take one item that's the same across all stores and give it a different price, assign it to a different prep category, give it different tax flags. This doesn't control their tax rates, it's just the flag. So for a site that has across multiple states where they sell alcohol, but one state they don't tax for it, the other state that they do, you can have the one drink that has different flag settings. Um, and then you can also control set items. So if you're going to have different sizing, maybe one store offers a different size of something that's using set items. Um, and the other option is start and end dates, where you can control different marketplaces for new items, and pre-program them and have different start and end dates on the same item. So we're going to get to the override groups. Next, you're going to assign, and let me make sure this is in order. No. So we're going to define the override groups. Great. So you're going to create all your stores, and then from here you can go into edit override groups. So let's say I have, let me make a second store. So this is going to be, and I'm just using the stores I already know. So then I have a second store here, and you can make as many stores as you want. Okay. So now I'm going to go into edit override groups. Hold on a second. Okay. So this is where I create those different override groups. So for this example, I'm going to have um, two different price groups for food and two different price groups for liquor. So let's start. So we're going to start with the prices. So to make a new group, I'm going to start with a name. So I'm going to call this food price tier 1. Okay, so it's valid for prices, and I'm gonna then assign major minor. So if you're gonna have multiple price groups, so for example, if you have one price tier 1, price tier 2, and every item in that in those tiers are the same, liquor, beer, wine, food, they're all the same across all the tiers, then you just make one. But you might find that you might have price groups for food and different ones for liquor or wine. So by doing it by major and minor category, you can specify those, and I'll show you why it makes a difference. So for this group, this is going to be my food group. So I'm going to select all my food, and I'll select any beverages, food modifiers, pizza, chips. Okay, breakfast. So I'm going to add group. Okay. So now I'm also going to make a food price, and you can call these whatever you want. Tier 2, and this is going to be all the same major minor categories, just called a different name. So I'm going to add group. So now I'm also going to make a price group for my beer and wine. And I don't know if I have liquor here. Doesn't look like it. Okay, so beer and wine. And this will be my liquor price 1, add group. Liquor price 2, add group. So this is just pricing, but you can get as detailed as you want. It really just depends on what the customer's needs are. But you can make as many groups as you want here. So, and let's also so now I'm going to make taxes, and taxes, same thing. If you're going to have different taxing groups, usually it's just by state or by county is usually what we use for the naming of it. But if you have maybe if you want to do it by different major minors, you can do that too. So I'll make a Florida tax, and this will apply to all major minor categories. And let's also make one for Dade County tax. So you're pretty much just selecting what these override groups are going to be named and what they're going to apply or what's going to consist of them. And then I'll show you how we program them. So I'm just for the example, I'm going to make one for prep categories, and this is going to be for um, KDS routing, whatever you want to call it, it's fine. And I'm also going to do one for set items. So we'll get back to the set items. Let me just add this group, and then the start and end dates will also make that too. So market A and market B. Okay. So now I have all my groups. Now, before we can program them, they actually have to be assigned somewhere. So if you're going to use or have a customer program these ahead of time, you could make a lab store that you could assign them to so that you could start programming them. So let me make a new one. I'll just call this lab so we can do that too. So let's say, okay, so now my Fort Lauderdale store, when I go to prices for Fort Lauderdale, I have prices for food. I thought I made two liquors. Let me check. Yeah, I did make this. Oh, this is taxes. Okay. Beer and wine. Okay. So now I have two food, two liquor prices. So you want to, if you're going to have multiple layers of price groups, you want to make sure you do it by major and minor because once I assign two um, food prices, actually it's not showing this yet. All right, we'll get back to this. So you're going to assign the price groups that belong to each store. So this, let's say this is food price one, liquor price one, and Weston is going to be price two for food and two for liquor. Okay, so this is telling me that I have overlapping tiers, which means that these categories are overlapping, so that's showing up red. So that's why, so most likely these are not programmed right because they shouldn't be overlapping. So let me go back here. My liquor two is beer and wine. Food two is also beer and wine. That is why. Okay. Okay. So now it's not overlapping. Great. So, okay, so let's say that this Weston store is KDS routing and the other store does not, and then we're going to assign, I know this is, so this is Florida tax, and we'll also set this no craft. Okay, so Fort Lauderdale will assign none because they're prep category. So if there's none selected here, that means that anything under the all store database that you've programmed already would automatically apply to them. The way the overrides work is it takes the master database that you defined and layers on top of that different overrides by these groups that change it for that store only. So I'm going to assign this tax, and they have no set items. Let's make this market A, and this one could be market B. Okay. So the other piece that you set up by store is actually we'll get back to that. Okay, great. So now see here that I have stores on my list, and I can view the different overrides assigned to them here at the top. So to program my different overrides, which is what you'll have to do, especially if the customer provides you with different pricing groups that they want. So like I said, first you're just going to build out the menu. You're going to have prices assigned. These are the all, everything that's defined by the master. So what we're going to do is layer on top of this with these different override groups and change the prices. So under my manage overrides by group, I can select what group I want to modify. So let's start with tier one. So tier one, so it's going to show me every price that's included in this override group. So we selected major minor categories. If it's not in those major minor categories that we selected, they will not let us change it. So if I try to go into beer and wine under this food price group and I try to change this, it says this item is not part of the current price override group and won't let you change it here. Um, this group only allows food, so and non-alcoholic beverages. So once I'm in here, as soon as I start changing prices, it's going to highlight in this greenish teal color, which means that this price is an override for this group. So the regular master database price is 175, which you could leave if those are all the same across all stores. You don't have to change it in the override group. The only thing you're changing in the override groups are anything that's different to this group than the master. So let's say this eggplant is 11, and normally it's 10.95 everywhere else. So you can go in here and program just like you normally would within this group, and then you can move between the two different price groups. So let's say that this item is $13 for this group, and of course you'd want to change it through all the price levels. This is just my example. So to change the liquor. So you're going to want to show the customer how to go in here and manage this, especially, whoever's going to be managing their database moving forward, because this is where they'll need to go to make changes to pricing. So let's just say I'm going to up all this um, by $1. So increase by $1. Okay, so this should be 4.9. All right, so all these prices change and they're all highlighted. Great. And then I'll just set some prices for liquor too. Let's just say these are decreased. All right, by $1. Perfect. Okay, so now I have set my different prices, and this is the same with all the different overrides. So if I go into prep categories, so let me go back to food. So let's say you do have two different concepts of prep categories. So for example, so this database, we have pizza, hot, chips, drinks, don't send. So let's say maybe this store doesn't have a pizza prep station. That would be a good example, and another store does have it. So for this store on their pizza, they don't go to the pizza prep, they go to the hot. So you could go in here and change this. All stores have the same prep categories in total. They just have the items have different ones assigned to them based off this override group. And I chose pizza. So let's make this hot. So now that I've changed that, it turns into this green color. Great. Now I also have taxes. So, and as I start to select this, I can change all of these at once as long as they're all selected here. If I turn off the prep category, it actually just takes it away. So here, same thing. It's just defining the tax flags. The rates are done at the store level, and eventually, once they move this, they're trying to add the setup features to QME, but they're not there yet. So taxes 1 through 4, I can change this. Let's say in Florida they don't charge tax on pizza, so I can turn off the tax flag. But maybe under the Dade County they charge 2 taxes because they have a county and homeless tax, so we'll turn on 3. So you can change those only the flags in the QME. So set items are a little different. I don't know if I have any set items in this database. Probably not. We'll get back to that. Let me circle back to that. So same thing with start and end dates. So you can have different marketplaces. I find that the start and end dates don't work as well as using a catalog screen, which I'll get to, or an unlimited screen. But you can define, if a customer's gonna add a new item, and I want this one to start on the 18th, and it didn't save it. Great. 03/18/2019. Okay, so I want this item in Market A to start on the 18th, but Market B is not going to start until the 20th. So you can define those and have them show up or not. So, now you see it's inactive because it doesn't update till the 29th, doesn't enable until the 20th, whereas A, so they can have the same item enabled and disabled based off these start and end dates, which is great for anybody programming multiple locations and you're going to roll out in phases. They can just do it at once. Of course, every store with Market A would have to be using it at the same date, and the same with Market B. So if they do have those types of groups, you can do that. Okay, so let me just check this. All right. So we've created override groups under edit stores, edit override groups. We created all the groups, and then we went and programmed them. We've assigned them already to the store. Okay, so the next step is assigning the menus. This is great if you have different concepts and different screens. For example, maybe you have a store that sells liquor and another store that just does beer and wine. You can actually choose by defined menu what you want them to see. So if I, so pretty much these are all my menus, and you can add them by store. So for example, here's one stores with breakfast. So let's say Fort Lauderdale doesn't offer breakfast, but Weston does. So I can assign the stores with breakfast menus. They are all the same, essentially delivery, pickup, dining room, but they have different screen assignments, which allows them to see the breakfast menu versus not. Also, we have local numbers. So by default, the first menu you assign, it will give it 1, 2, 3, 4. This is great because you can see, so they're using menu 21, 22, 23, 24, but Fort Lauderdale's using 1, 2, 3, 4. So now instead of making everybody's menu terminal assignments different, they're all the same. They're all using 1, 2, 3, 4 at each store. So it makes it a little bit easier, saves you some time. You can use the same menu terminal assignments for everyone. Okay, so now that I have my stores, I created my groups, I programmed them, and I also assign the menus. Now I can get out of here, and I'm going to get out of the manage overrides by group. So now if I go into the store, so here I'm looking at the all store database. So initially when you're programming, adding a new button, you want to go in here. If you're changing the screen properties, you're going to do it from here. This the store is really just a preview. So I can see the prices groups that are assigned, the prep category, the taxes, and all the different override groups. And I can also see a preview of what screens they have. So you notice Fort Lauderdale doesn't have any breakfast. But if I go to Weston, they have breakfast. And this is what they see at their store. So Fort Lauderdale will never see a breakfast screen unless I assign it to them. So now we can manage our overrides by group, but you can also do it by store. So if I go into Fort Lauderdale and I change the price of this soda to $3, it's actually going to update for the whole group. So some customers find it easier to go into the store that they know would need it, change it here, and then anybody assigned to the same group would get the change. It's up to you. Um, so that's another thing you can do here. Besides that, there's also the unlimited screen. So let me go back to all stores. So this is my beverage and chip screen. It's a 5 column screen, just a normal screen. So I'm going to change this under the screen properties, and I'm going to change number of columns to unlimited. So what this does is it creates a catalog. So for example, I am not going to offer juice at all my stores. Only certain stores are going to get it. So when you have an unlimited screen, this is the only thing besides an override that you can specify by store if you do it by store. Um, so let's say this store, they don't have breakfast, so they're not going to sell juice. Okay, so under my Weston store, I can bring over juice and now they see it, whereas Fort Lauderdale will not. Same screen, same items, um, but different layouts depending on that. And so when you program a new item on this type of screen, there's actually, you can just, you know, create the button on an open cell and then just drag it over. Um, this is, you'd want to do that under all stores. So see, all stores still has it, so everybody has it still. But if I were to do it under all stores and drag that over here, now it would hide it. So then I could, at that point, so I create the new button, I drag it over to to the catalog, and then by store, if they need it, I could go and bring it over. So those are great to use. Um, and you can even give them the stores access to move things over. For example, they're going to be able to swap out their kegs if they run out. They can choose up to 6 different beers. It's up to them which one they want to promote. But you want corporate items, corporate prices, but you want them to be able to choose. So you can give them access to a catalog screen to just be able to move the buttons over themselves. Also use this for discounts, coupons. I found it works better than the start and end dates. Okay. Okay. So the last piece of defining with the customer is your edit controls. So you can create different control levels. A lot of customers like the corporate control level; they allow nothing. The store can't do anything. And so these up here, um, you're gonna you're gonna avoid using these. These are actually to control the corporate database. So if you turn this on, you won't be able to change anything in the master database. So I mean, I guess if you really wanted to, uh, but I don't recommend it, and neither does Posi. Okay, so I have by default gives you corporate, local, locally managed. I added this beer price. So pretty much how these work is this would be a local screen where so we have the corporate allow nothing, and you can actually dive in and define your corporate. So maybe we'll change it from allow nothing, where I'm going to allow them to change the color of a button. They can't add anything. They can't change the price. They can't change the tax. They can't move stuff around, but I'll let them change the color of the button. So you can give them as little or as much as you want. The customer just needs to let you know what they want to do. Now, we did have issues with giving stores access to, let's say, changing the price or changing the start and end date, right? So I give them access to do it, and then down the road, corporate says, you know what, I don't want them to be able to do that anymore. Well, we did have some issues switching a local item over from being local to actually being a corporate controlled item. Reason being is it's built in the database that anything locally done at the store would not be overridden by a corporate download. So by default, to protect them, it will ignore those changes and just stick with whatever they have locally. So you actually have to wipe out all the local changes and redeploy it, which we'll get to what that is. So corporate, local, and you can give them, menu item ranges, screen ranges. Dairy Queen does this for local screens if you want to give them access to local screens, or screen 110 through 115. They have access to do everything under menu items, order screens, modifiers, modifier groups. You can give them access to everything on those screens. And you can give them a different range of numbers if you don't want them to program in the corporate database. Then I use this example for beer pricing. They can change the prices for beer because corporate doesn't want to manage that. So these are all the controls you can give them. You have to talk to the customer and find out what they want, but whatever you're looking for, you can do it here. And usually there's multiple flags. So if I was going to give them the ability to change the color and the size of the button, I'd also want to make sure that I'm not missing any other settings on the other screens. Uh, okay, so the controls, how they work. So I have them defined here. So how they work is on your screen properties, you have edit control type where you can assign. So this is corporate. So every time I make a new button on this screen, the default edit control type is corporate, which is something we actually had to make Posi change because it wasn't. We were forgetting to go into each item and change it. So let's say I'm going to make the screen locally managed now. So now when I go to create a new cell, it's under locally managed. So not only is there an edit control type on the actual cell itself, there's also one under the menu item. So anything, so this control type is also locally managed now. So whatever the screen is assigned to, it will pick up the cell and the menu item record. If you wanted to make one item on a screen different from everyone else, you would have to do that after you program it. It'll go to the default and then you can go in and change it. But you have to remember to change it under the menu item builder itself as well as the cell, or it won't function properly. And there's also edit control types for modifiers as well. So that we control by screen. So if you have a screen with the wrong control type and they're able to access stuff, by default everything comes in as corporate unless you change it because it's the edit control type number 1. So that covers all the programming in QME to make it an enterprise database. Once you've programmed everything, and maybe not everything, but you're ready to open your first store, because you could start with the first store and then build off that. So to load a new store, you have to deploy it, which will assign it a location ID based off of either the store or the concept that you assign to it. That way it knows what overrides to upload because everybody receives the same database. Everybody essentially has a QME master database on their machine. It just knows this is a Fort Lauderdale store and I'm going to upload everything that they need. So to deploy, you go to File on the master and deploy. So here, and this is my directory, but it would normally be SC, is you would create a deployment file. So this is where it's going to put the file. I'm going to include, if you are using ingredients, menu items, and recipes for inventory, you can include that. If it's a new group, they probably won't have it starting off right away, but let's say you convert an existing corporate account that uses it, you can actually include the ingredients and recipes in your QME deployment. Also with price tables, if you are using price tables, it'll send price tab .dat and your lookup text if you're using menu help. So if you are using any of those, you want to turn them on. Otherwise, you don't have to. I usually use select store later. You don't have to. You could just say that this is the deployment file for Fort Lauderdale and deploy it. But I like this one because I can reuse it if I'm deploying multiple stores. And also it prompts me at the store level which store it is just to make sure I don't select the wrong one by mistake. So I'm going to deploy. So this takes a little while. You have to wait for it to go through. So while it's doing that, let me just pull up, see if I have a database on my machine we can upload this to. Okay, so once it's done, it'll show deployment set complete. Okay, so now I'm going to, here's my folder. So this would be CSC, QM export info mode, deploy all. And then here I have a QM deploy.zip. So pretty much what I'm going to do is take this from the master or my computer, wherever I'm building this, and I'm going to upload to the store. So let me see if I can do it here. So I'm just going to drop it into the SC of the store. Let me close out of this. And when I open QM for the first time, once I've uploaded a deployment file there, it's going to prompt me to, if I would like to deploy quick menu. So I'm going to hit yes. So here it's prompting me to select the store, which you can do, or you can just assign the store when you make the file. So I'm going to choose that this is the Fort Lauderdale location, and then it's going to deploy quick menu. So this is my Fort Lauderdale store. You'll see that it says local 1010. So this is what the store is going to see. They don't see all the stores. This store does not have breakfast, so as you can see, there's no breakfast here. And then some of the changes that we made, I can see that there's a price. This is allowing me to change because we made it local, whereas something that's not local is locked out and they can't change. So this one, I gave them the ability to change the color of the button, which they can do if they want, because we gave them access to. But anything they don't have access to, they can't change. Okay. So this is the ID. So let's say that meant to say that this is Weston, not Fort Lauderdale. So I can close out of this. Now to change this, and let's go to, what is INSE old? Okay, so if I type in QM space location, it'll allow me to pull this back up so I can change it. This is also good for a lab environment, which I recommend for corporate sites. So you can have a lab environment and then just go into QM location and define which store you want to look at when you're testing. So to change this, I'm going to select Weston and close. And now when I open QM, it's going to show me that I'm in the Weston store versus Fort Lauderdale, which says up here local Weston, and now I have a breakfast screen here. So that's just when you're first setting up a store, you deploy. Now, if you're going to send updates from the master database, that is called an export. So let me get out of here. And you're going to want to test your export to make sure that it's working before the store goes live. Because I've had some instances where the QM agent, if it's a new customer, the agent will be there with their key and you don't need to tell PosiCloud what store it is. But if you're doing maybe an older site with menu W and you're converting them, you're going to need to install the agent at each store and then identify that agent ID with PosiTouch, the PosiCloud support email. Okay, so I'm back in the master. Now let's say I made some changes and I want to send an export to the stores. So under File on the master, I have Export. So local test, and just like the deploy, you can include price tables, menu help, inventory data. Now for this would be more, there's another step you have to do to set that up. It still uses Wexport in a way, but we'll get to that probably in another video. Okay, and then you can also include an immediate system change with your export if you're going to send it and you want it to push through right away. I usually don't. I usually have it go through the day before Nightly, and let Nightly push it through. We have less issues with that. So local test actually creates an export zip file that you can manually import. So if I select export, it just does its thing, creates a zip file. So it's asking me if I want to import. You can set up a test folder database. If you wanted your master to also be a lab environment, you could do that. And this, wherever we would assign that to, would upload it to that lab environment. We actually, with other customers, we hit no here because we actually have a different system running the lab environment because we don't want that to get interfered with the master database. So I'm going to hit no because I'm not going to import it. Export's complete. It puts it in the same similar folder as the deploy, CSV, QM export, export import, export set, and then it makes this QM export.zip. So to upload that, if I use this, if let's say site has a slow connection, or maybe the download is failing and you just need to get them up and running for the day, you can just grab the zip file from the master, drop it into the stores SC, and simply run a command. Let me go in here. So let's do that real quick. So I'm going to go back into my directory. I'm going to go into my demo 2, grabbed. I'm going to grab this QM export set, copy, and I'm going to go into the SE old and drop that in. So with the master, the exports will not work if it's not in the CSC. If you have it, we tried to do this with a group where we try to make it like SC master because we wanted to have other databases in the other SCs and it doesn't work. So you have to do it in the CSC. But this is just a demo, so it'll be fine. So under SE old, because I just dropped my export file in, you don't need to extract it or anything. I'm going to run QM import all quick menu. So it'll locate the file and ask you if you want to import. I'm going to import. It's going to do its thing. It takes a few minutes depending on how many changes were made. This shouldn't be that long because we didn't make any. And it tells you everything that it does. And this gets uploaded to the quick menu log file. It's the same log file for quick menu versus quick menu enterprise. Also, if you want to, if you don't remember what the command is, you can type in QM question mark, and it'll show you all the different. So this is QM import all quick menu. So that's the one I normally use, but you can import certain things. I don't see why, unless you were gonna, I mean, for enterprise, you don't need this because you're controlling what they see and what they have. The other one I use, save to back office, which will, same as opening and closing quick menu. Now, if you are manually uploading like we just did, so this completed in 0.5 minutes, I'm gonna hit done. So once you do that, it doesn't do the saving piece that when you close quick menu, it says saving to back office. So you can open and close quick menu at this point and then do the immediate system change, or you can type in QM save to BO and that will update that so that almost like the update prices that we did with menu W so that I can do an immediate system change and it'll upload to the front. So, but you can also do that by just opening and closing quick menu. So let me get out of here. That covers doing a local export. And this is the saving I was talking about. So now I'm just going to go back into my master database. Okay, so that's the local, which I use really just to troubleshoot sites that are failing or to upload it to a different machine to test or anything like that. Okay, so export, and then the other options you have, you only have 4. So ASAP all locations, this sends it through the cloud to every store and uploads it right away. So you could do that if you needed to fix something right away, send it with price updates and immediate system change. You want to give it a name so that you know when you're troubleshooting. If you just call it QM export, we've had issues trying to figure out what was what. So if this was, pizza price changes, you can include a name so that when you're looking at it, you know what was changed and you can kind of figure out who was involved in that and for troubleshooting purposes. So I can export this now and it'll send to all locations. You also have scheduled, which is good. I like to schedule it maybe like an hour or two before nightly. That way, even though you turn immediate system change, a lot of times it'll show a false positive that it completed properly, but the immediate system change didn't go through and the stores don't see it out front. So if I schedule it ahead of time, have it go through before nightly, nightly will push that through to the front of the house. So that's usually the way that I go. Then you have on hold, which is where you can send it to the cloud, and then on the cloud you can assign which store you want to send it to. So if you're going to send something to a lab environment, you could put it on hold and then have it just sent to the lab through the cloud. So that's your other option there. Don't really see a need for that. Really, everyone can see the database because you control it. But maybe for a testing purpose, you can use that. So I want to show you guys what this looks like. Let me just pull this up. Okay. So, and I'm not going to use the Pinnacle support because there's a lot. It'll take a while to load. But I have an Anthony's login, so I'm going to log in here. Then I have Posi Connect. So Anthony's, they don't have flash reports or anything. They just use this for QME. So if I change this, this is showing last 30 days. Let's do last 7 days. So each download will show up here. So dry wing revision, dry wing, recipe changes, catering drink price. So these are the names that they assigned us. Now I know if there's an error, which one failed. It then shows me by store if it completed or waiting to apply, completed, failed. So if you have a failure, you can just come in here and select reapply immediately. So you don't have to go back through the master and resend it. You could try this first. So it says that they're using in data, which means they probably have inventory open. So you could see this, go into the store, close out of inventory, and then reapply without having to resend it to everybody. Or you can also just grab the export file and do it manually, either way. Sometimes waiting to apply or the timeout could be a slow connection, or send timeout is usually some type of firewall being blocked. Um, and then usually any failures means that it got to the store, but maybe something was locking up the database, like this one says that somebody's using in data, which is the most commonplace case. They're in quick menu or they're in data, which would be inventory, and then it fails. So that's why another reason why I schedule it for overnight to prevent issues from happening with the export itself. So the next step is really just training the store on how to use this. So I put a checklist together. I think I covered everything. You can ask me any questions if you have any. And really, the training I tailor mostly to how they're going to operate. Are you going to have different prices? Are you going to have different tax flags? If they're all in the same state, they probably don't need it. Um, Oh, I do want to show you how to do the set mods. Let me close out of this. Okay. So, and I only just use this once. The example was for wine for Anthony's. They decided to test a carafe set mod so that when someone ordered a glass of wine, they could choose to upgrade it to a carafe, which would as be a set mod, change the record number, which would change the price in the recipe. So, but not every store is going to use it. So let's say let me just make this real quick. Okay, so I created a carafe set mod for the Chardonnay. Okay, so different item, different price. This is under all stores, which is how you're going to do it. Now, if I'm going to assign the set mod override group, which let me go into, which I did to Weston. Okay, so Weston has the no carafe set. So this override group is to remove sizes, not to add them. So you add the sizes to all stores, and then you hide them from certain stores. So of course this one doesn't have beer and wine on it, which means if they don't have beer and wine, means I didn't assign a liquor menu to them. So let's go out of here. I'll go into the stores. I'm going to go to Weston, and I'll just assign them everything. Oh, this one says with beer. Okay, great. Okay, so now that I've assigned those, now I have a beer and wine. So I'm going to show my set items. So once I have this no carafe set assigned, I can actually go into this store and deactivate the set item. So this means when they ring it in, they don't have the pop-up for the carafe size. So if you were going to offer multiple sizes and you were going to hide one, it would show all the other ones, but not the one that you're hiding. So to do that, you program it under all stores. Everybody gets it. Then any store with that override group, you could activate by size what they don't need. I think I covered everything. Thank you.